I always believed there were some lines in life that you never crossed, no matter how lonely, how vulnerable, or how desperate you became. For most of my life, I lived with those lines drawn clearly in my mind. My name is Melissa, and this story is about a night I never thought I would experience, a night that changed the way I looked at myself and the people around me. I am not proud of it. Even now, when I look back, I wonder if it was fate testing me or simply life reminding me that I was human after all. I had been divorced for almost 4 years when this happened. My ex-husband, Daniel, walked out on me when I was 36, leaving me with an empty house, broken dreams, and a heart that no longer trusted anyone. After he left, I built my life around routines. Work, home, a little bit of TV, maybe a book before bed. I didn't let anyone in, and honestly, it was easier that way. The only person who managed to break through my walls was my best friend, Laura. We had been friends since high school. She was the kind of friend who never left your side, even when the rest of the world forgot about you. Laura was married young, and unlike me, she stayed married. She had 2 kids, a daughter who was already in college and a son named Ryan, who was 18. I knew both her kids since they were born. Ryan was like a nephew to me, always polite, quiet, and respectful whenever I came over. It was a Friday night when this all began. Laura had called me earlier that day asking if I could come over for movie night. She sounded so tired over the phone, saying she just wanted to relax and catch up with me like old times. I hadn't been out all week, so I agreed. I packed an overnight bag because she suggested I stay the night instead of driving back late. Her husband was out of town on business and her daughter was away at college, so it was just going to be the 3 of us, her, me, and Ryan. I arrived around 7 that evening, and she greeted me at the door with a warm hug. She always smelled of lavender. The house felt familiar, like a second home. Ryan was in the living room, playing a video game, and he looked up when I came in. He smiled and said, "Hi, Miss Melissa," like he always did. I smiled back and waved, not thinking much about it. Laura and I spent the evening cooking pasta, laughing in the kitchen, and gossiping about people from high school. Ryan joined us for dinner and was surprisingly chatty that night. He talked about graduating high school, about his plans for college, and even about how much he liked photography. I hadn't realized he was growing up so fast. In my mind, he was still the little boy who used to run around with a toy truck in his hand. After dinner, we all sat down for a movie marathon. It started out lighthearted, comedies and silly action movies. But as the night dragged on, I noticed Laura was struggling to stay awake. By the second movie, her head was leaning on the couch arm and she was out cold. I whispered to Ryan that we should lower the volume, and he nodded. By the time the 3rd movie was halfway done, I realized she wasn't going to wake up anytime soon. I got up to grab a blanket for her and tucked her in. "She's been so tired lately," I said quietly to Ryan. He nodded. "Yeah, she's been doing so much at work. It's good she has you here." When the credits rolled, I thought I should just head to the guest room. It was almost 1 a.m., but Ryan asked if I wanted something to drink before heading to bed. We went to the kitchen together, and as he poured us some iced tea, I couldn't help but notice how much he had changed. His shoulders were broader now, his voice deeper. There was a calm maturity in him that I hadn't noticed before. We sat at the kitchen table and started talking. It began with harmless small talk, but then, like most conversations in the middle of the night, it went deeper. He asked me how I was doing if I ever got lonely. The question caught me off guard. I smiled faintly, trying to brush it off. "Of course, sometimes. Everyone does." "Even you," he said, his eyes fixed on me. "You always seem like you have it all figured out." That made me laugh softly. "Ryan, I'm probably the least figured out person you know. I just pretend." He was quiet for a moment and then said, "You don't deserve what happened to you, Miss Melissa. Mom told me about your divorce. I think you're one of the strongest people I know." I didn't know how to respond to that. I just stared at him, a little stunned. His words, though simple, hit me harder than I expected. I hadn't heard someone speak to me like that in years. We kept talking, and I found myself telling him things I hadn't even told Laura. About how hard it had been to trust again, about the loneliness that sometimes became unbearable. He listened, not interrupting, just nodding, his expression soft. Something about the way he looked at me made me feel safe and understood. When the clock struck 2, I said I should get to bed. I got up and so did he. As we walked back toward the hallway, a sudden thunderclap made me jump. A storm had rolled in without us noticing. Lightning lit up the windows, followed by a loud rumble of thunder. I hated storms. I always had. "You okay?" he asked, noticing the way I froze. "I'm fine," I lied. He hesitated, then said, "You can stay in the living room if you don't want to be alone. I'll stay up for a bit." I wanted to say no, but another crack of thunder made my heart race. I sighed and said, "Maybe just for a little while." We sat on opposite ends of the couch. The house was quiet except for the rain tapping against the windows. He handed me a blanket, and for a while, we just sat there in silence, watching the flashes of light outside. I tried to focus on anything but the storm, but every rumble made me tense. At some point, I must have dozed off. When I woke up, it was still dark, the storm still raging. I realized my head was resting on his shoulder. I pulled back quickly, embarrassed, but he just smiled. "It's okay," he whispered. I felt a rush of emotions I couldn't explain. Gratitude, comfort, and something I didn't want to name. "Sorry," I murmured, looking down at my hands. "You don't have to be sorry," he said softly. "You don't always have to be strong, you know." I met his eyes then. There was something steady in them, something that made my guard slip, just a little. Before I could think, I said, "It's been a long time since anyone said that to me." And then silence. A long, heavy silence that seemed to fill the entire room. I don't know who moved first. Maybe it was me. Maybe it was him. But the next thing I knew, he reached out and gently took my hand. It was such a simple gesture, yet it broke something inside me, the wall I had built brick by brick over the years. My heart was pounding. Every rational thought in my head told me to pull away, to get up, to leave. But I didn't. I let myself feel what I hadn't let myself feel in years, seen, cared for, wanted. "Ryan," I whispered, my voice trembling. "I know," he said quietly. I don't want you to feel alone tonight." His words undid me. The tears came before I could stop them. I didn't even know why I was crying. Maybe from exhaustion, maybe from all the years of holding everything in. He didn't say anything. He just let me cry, holding my hand the whole time. When I finally stopped, I felt lighter, like a weight had been lifted. But I also knew that something had shifted between us. That night, nothing inappropriate happened. We didn't cross any physical lines.